What's that, Angela learning? Oh, we've got started on the criminal law, and that's what we were talking about yesterday in the lecture. I think it's called the Criminal Law 1, Crime and Punishment. Yes, and that we started to talk about that, and we talked about what was a crime and what makes a crime different from other types of conduct is that it's conduct which the state sees as wrong and will prosecute itself. And the state can be prosecuted by the Director of Public Prosecutions or perhaps even the Crown. And there were certain features we talked about which were common with criminal law. Generally, the onus of proof is on the prosecution. That means the prosecution has to make the case and bring forward the evidence. The accused person does not have to prove that they are innocent. And if the prosecution's unable to bring forward sufficient evidence, or if the jury doesn't believe that there's been sufficient evidence, then the accused person's found not guilty. What's that, robo-lawyer? Does that mean they didn't do it? Well, not necessarily. A person can be found not guilty, but may have actually committed the crime. All a finding of not guilty means is that the prosecution has failed to produce sufficient evidence to convince a jury or a judicial officer that beyond reasonable doubt on that evidence the accused committed the crime. So what's that? They may have still done it. Well, it's quite possible, yes. But in our criminal law system we take the view it's better that 10 guilty people be acquitted rather than one innocent person be wrongly acquitted. That's why in the criminal law system it's favoured towards the accused. What have we got here? Goodness gracious me. What's been going on down here? Robo-Murine is riding on Pencil Dog. Well, it's a bit better than Pencil Dog chasing Robo-Murine. So, yeah, so what's that? What's that evidence of? Well, I don't know what that's evidence of. We could draw our own inferences from that about Pencil Dog and Robo-Murine, but it's a lot better than Pencil Dog chasing Robo-Murine and thinking Robo-Murine's a ball. So that's the first thing about the criminal law process. And the standard of proof is the standard beyond a reasonable doubt. And we think back to week 1 in the course when I talked about the differences between the civil standard and the criminal standard, and they're two very different standards. What else did we talk about with the criminal law? Well, we talked about what sorts of punishments and why they have punishment for those convicted of crimes and the various reasons: protection of society, rehabilitation of the offender, those sorts of reasons are listed there on the overheads. In fact, yes, I've updated the overheads a little bit from previous years, and in the notes here, yes, I talk about the Concerned Persons Register. Well, that's changed now. That's the Victims Register. That's in Queensland. We looked at the types of penalties which can be imposed following conviction of an offence. We found out that, yes, they can be custodial, that means where the person's in prison, or non-custodial. And the legislation in Queensland which talks about the different sorts of penalties is the Penalties and Sentences Act. That's right, Angela learning. We looked at the different pieces of legislation which set out criminal law, and how in some states it's all set out in criminal codes, but there are other acts which also list conduct and address conduct which can be considered wrong and against the law. For example, in Queensland we've got the Drugs Misuse Act, and then we've got the Summary Offences Act, which replaced the Vagrants, Gaming and Other Offences Act. We've also got the Regulatory Offences Act, because that deals with little things which are wrong but not necessarily as serious as other offences. They're people who eat fruit in the supermarkets when it's on display, those sorts of things. People who have a meal in a restaurant and then leave without paying. What's that, robo-lawyer? What if they forget to pay? Well, I guess it's up to them to come back and say, well, look, we forgot to pay, and you should pay. You don't say, oh, gee, we snuck out of there, and I forgot to pay the bill. No, that's not right. So we looked at the different sorts of penalties, and I talked about, that's right, I talked about the Queensland Corrective Services webpage. It's a very useful webpage. It's got lots of interesting information there about how the Corrective Services operates, types of penalties that are imposed in Queensland. Yes, we've got it. You right there, pencil dog? Yes, I'm playing with your nose here. Yes. What else do we talk about? Yes, the last thing, very important, about the rights of victims of crime and how that's become more prominent, and how legislative changes have come about to, first of all, ensure that in many cases people who have been the victim of crime are able to recover financial compensation, the criminal injuries compensation. What's that, robo-lawyer? What if the person who committed the crime hasn't got the money to pay the compensation? Well, that used to be a problem, but the legislative scheme allows that for the state to pay. So there's that mechanism. And what if you were frightened about if the person was coming out of jail? Well, that's why we've got the victims register, so that the victims of crime know where the offender is, know which custodial centre they're located in, and they can actually make submissions when the offender is making an application for parole. So it's the law's been changing in a number of different areas. So at one stage, oh, what's that, pencil dog? You and Robo Murine want to know about all the bad things. Well, if you want to go and find out all the different crimes, well, you can go to the Criminal Code of Queensland. That's right. We had some students looking at that yesterday in the tutorial session. They looked at the Criminal Code of Queensland, and then we found out there's a Commonwealth Criminal Code as well, which deals with other areas of law which the Commonwealth's responsible for. And then there says the Summary Offences Act, the Drugs Misuse Act, and in fact quite often legislation imposes criminal sanctions for certain behaviours which are specific to the area the legislation is dealing with. For example, it might be cattle stealing or something like that. So to say that the criminal law is all in one place. But it's very important, yes, criminal law is basically statute law these days, mainly statute law. And what's the other thing? Do we always have to have a jury in a criminal trial? Well, no, we don't. If it's a summary matter, you don't have a jury, do you? It's just heard by the judicial officer, normally a magistrate. And now they've changed the law, so in certain cases, even where the person's entitled to trial by jury, if it's there, that person looks like they wouldn't get a fair trial with a jury, normally because they're so notorious, that means they're so well known, or their alleged crimes are so notorious, then it's possible for them to have a trial by a judge sitting alone. Yes, it keeps changing, that criminal law. It does. It keeps changing, and that was the other thing. It's sort of things which were once considered against the law, no longer necessarily criminal. Oh, goodness gracious, Robo Meering. Did you jump off then, Robo Meering? Look, you go. I'll put you up there, yes, near Robo Lawyer. Look, move Robo Lawyer around so people can see Robo Meering. Keep. Yeah, okay, and there's Angela Learning, yes, over here. I think we better get ready to say goodbye now, because we've done covered a lot of topics today, haven't we? It's criminal law. It does change all the time. That's one of the things. Yes. How do you keep up with it? Well, yes, I don't know. It's useful to follow the newspapers. Sometimes important changes to the criminal law come through that way. You can always... What's that? Yeah, it's like Pencil Dog. No, not everyone goes and looks at Ostley all the time, do they? No, it's only people doing this course know about Ostley. Well, I hope they do, and I hope they go to the Corrective Services webpage. I put that up there. It's very, very useful. So, okay, well, we'll say goodbye now. Say goodbye, Robo Lawyer, Robo Marine, Pencil Dog, Angel Learning. Well, we'll say goodbye, everyone. Okay, till next time. Now, let's see if we can get this turned off. Now, you're not going to fall off that, are you, Robo Marine? No.